Dear Father in heaven, thank you so much for your many, many blessings to us over this Sabbath. Thank you that we can open your Word and study, share together. Thank you for a great meal. Thank you for the experience of worship and doing evangelism, filling envelopes with books. That in doing this, we're doing the work of our Creator to reach His children, to let them know, to awaken them before it's too late. Thank you that we had the privilege to do that this afternoon. We're thankful that we can look at history and look at current events. And we're thankful for the spirit of prophecy that teaches and helps us understand. Bless us with your presence. Give us clear minds. In Jesus' name, amen. Before I actually get into the talk this afternoon, I'm going to be quoting from a book this afternoon in this Behind the Door, Part 52. It's called Imminent Dangers to the Free Institutions of the United States Through Foreign Immigration. This book is in very good shape. It's got a hardback cover and it looks real nice. This book was published in 1835. 1835, the original manuscript, this was put into book form in 1835. Now this book right here is about 30 pages long. The book was written by a very, very famous inventor in the United States. His name was Samuel B. Morse. He was not only an inventor, he was an artist, he was a patriot, he loved America, and Samuel B. Morse wrote this book, published in 1835. He wrote another book called Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States. That was published in 1844. Now, if any of you would like a copy of this book, anybody wants a copy, I've got many copies of this book in my office. They're photocopies, but I will most certainly be glad to give you one. Please just do this for me. Put your name on a piece of paper, give it to me, say, Bill, I want Morse's book. And what I'll do is I'll put them in a manila folder, and I'll put them back here on the back pew. Okay? And your name will be on it. You just come in and get it. But folks, it's well worth reading, as you're going to find this afternoon. It's well worth reading. I think we're all familiar with Revelation 13 and verse 11. And if anybody who's listening to this Behind the Door by tape, if you want a copy of this book by Samuel B. Morse on dangers to America through immigration, just write to me and I'd be glad to send you a copy of the book as well. We're all familiar with Revelation 13 and verse 11. We're going to read that to start today. It says, And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Now, I guess the question I would ask you, and I've asked different groups this before. I asked this to the folk in Portland last Sabbath. Have you ever heard of a lamb that starts off that way, and it starts off, what noise does a lamb make? Bah, that's right. Have you ever heard or seen a lamb that as it matures, or as it develops into a full-blown ewe, or a full-blown ram, have you ever seen a lamb spew out fire? You've never seen that happen. So how is it, now think, how is it that this beast, this world power that comes in the Western Hemisphere, it starts off like a lamb, doesn't it? It has two horns like a lamb, but it ends up speaking like a dragon. Now, in the natural world, you and I would say, that's impossible. Right? But how could that happen in a spiritual sense? Some people would say to us, well, that's just naturally what occurs. A nation starts off good and it gradually goes bad. Well, I don't agree with that. The other option that's available to us is, like in the parable Jesus told of the wheat and tares, when he said, an enemy has done this. The other likely possibility that I believe is that we have a situation here where this nation in the Western Hemisphere that starts off like a lamb and ends up like a dragon is because an enemy has planned and plotted for that nation to do that. Now what I want to do is I want to go back and read some excerpts from Samuel B. Morse's book and then make comments. Once again, written in 1835. Now think for just a moment, we're talking about a historical time frame here. 1835, Ellen White. She's not even Ellen White yet, is she? She's still Ellen Harmon. And she's not even 10 years old. William Miller, the great pioneer of the Advent movement, has just started preaching in the northeastern part of the United States. And he's preaching about the second coming of Christ as Samuel B. Morse is publishing this book. It was in 1835 that Andrew Jackson was the President of the United States. And in 1835, the Great Disappointment was still 9 years away. So all of these things are brewing in the United States as this patriot, Samuel Morse, publishes this book. And he sends it out as a warning to the American people. In 1835, folks, we're not even talking about in the 1900s. How old is America in 1835? America is only basically 60 years old. America is still a young nation. A young nation. We haven't even seen the Civil War yet. And Samuel B. Morse, some 22 years after the beginning of the War of 1812, he is warning America. And he's saying, folks, there is a great danger. He says an imminent. And an imminent danger it's right on our doorstep. In fact, it's not just on our doorstep, it's in the house. He says, imminent dangers to the free institutions of the United States through foreign immigration. Now, I think some of you are aware, and some of you might be surprised to know, as early as the 1850s, Ellen White, through the Spirit of God, declared that Jesus could have come that far back. He could have also returned, according to the Spirit of prophecy, in the 1890s, when Ellen White said the latter rain began to fall. So Jesus could have come in the 1850s, 1860s. He could have come in the 1890s, 1900s. He could have come. And so, for the details of Bible prophecy to be fulfilled, Could Revelation 13 have been fulfilled in the 1850s? Absolutely. You say, well, they didn't have the possibility of civil and religious liberty being taken away back then. They didn't. Oh, yes, they did. Samuel Morse said, before Ellen White was 10, folks, he said there are dangers to the freedoms of Americans right now in 1835. Which means very, very clearly that Revelation 13 could have been fulfilled in the 1850s, 1860s. So that this nation would never have seen a civil war. So all of the specifications of the prophecy of Revelation 13 and the restriction of civil and religious liberty could have taken place all the way back then. And Samuel B. Morse historically documents that very thing. Samuel B. Morse, I don't know if he was what church he was a part of, but Samuel B. Morse was writing the fulfillment of Bible prophecy from Revelation 13, and I bet he didn't even know it. So with that historical time frame, in light of the world events and in light of the events taking place among God's people, let's read what Samuel B. Morse had to say. He says, Europe was at rest from war. The activity of mind which had so long been engaged in war was turned now to the cultivations of the arts of peace. It was at this period of a general peace that a holy alliance of the monarchs of Europe was formed. That was 1814, 1815. Ellen White wasn't even born. William Miller had not even started studying the prophecies. And already the sovereigns of Europe were plotting something, a holy alliance. The sovereigns professed to be guided by the maxims of religion, but they have long since betrayed that their plans of peace were to be intimately connected with the preservation of their own arbitrary power and the destruction of popular liberty everywhere. Ellen White wasn't born, folks. William Miller was still a deist. There was no such thing as an Advent people as the Holy Alliance convened in Vienna. Whatever militated against this power or favored this liberty was to be crushed. To this single end has been directed all the diplomatic talent of Europe for years. Those things that were set in motion by the Protestant Reformation, but more strongly agitated by the American Revolution, are yet working among the people of these governments to give the tyrants of the earth uneasiness. Now, what is Samuel B. Morse saying? He's simply saying this, folk. As the Catholic sovereigns of Europe, as the Pope Pius VII, as they watched the rise of popular liberty in the United States, they said, either they're going to win or we're going to win. They realized that the two could not coexist together. Tyranny and liberty cannot be neighbors. They can't be bedfellows. You either have one that lives and the other dies, or vice versa, but not both living at the same time. It doesn't happen. One has to be destroyed. Conspiracies and revolutions in the more absolute governments and the alternate changes from more to less arbitrary components of the more popular governments indicate to us at various times the vicissitudes of the great contest and the sharpness of the struggle. Going on, can the example of liberty which this country shows produce no uneasiness to monarchs? Does not every day bring fresh intelligence of the influence of American liberty directly in England, France, Spain, Portugal, and Belgium, and indirectly in all the other European countries? And is there no danger of a reaction from Europe? Have we no interest in these changing aspects of European politics? The writer believes that since the time of the American Revolution, which gave the principles of liberty a home, those principles have never been in greater jeopardy than at the present moment. If there is danger, let us arouse to defense. If it's a false alarm, let such explanations be given of most suspicious appearances as shall safely allay it. It's no party question. The attempt to make it one should be at once suspected. It concerns all of every party. There's danger of reaction from Europe. The great political truth has recently been promulgated in the principal courts of Europe at Vienna, Austria. And one of the profoundest scholars of Germany, Friedrich Schlegel, a devoted Roman Catholic, and one of the Austrian cabinet, the great truth clearly and unanswerably proved that the political revolutions to which European governments have been so long subjected from the popular desires for liberty are the natural effects of the Protestant Reformation. That Protestantism favors republicanism, while popery supports monarchical power. In these lectures delivered by Schlegel for the purpose of strengthening the cause of absolute power, there is a most important allusion to the United States. And as it demonstrates one of the principal connecting points between European and American politics, and is the key to many of the mysterious doings that are in operation against American institutions, under our own eyes, let Americans treasure it well in their memories. What is Morse saying? He's saying that this man, Friedrich Schlegel, a devout German Roman Catholic, in a series of speeches, he made some very definitive allusions to a nation called the United States. Now, what did Schlegel say about the United States? He goes on, and Morse quotes Schlegel. The great nursery of these destructive principles, the principles of republicanism, the great revolutionary school for France and the rest of Europe is, guess where? North America. North America. Yes, Morse says, I address Republican Americans, those who believe in the American Republic. The influence of this government is vitally felt by Austria. She confesses it. It is prescribed by the Austrian cabinet. This country is designated directly to all her people and to her allied despots as the great plague spot of the world, the poisoned fountain whence flow all the deadly evils which threaten their own existence. Do you see what he's saying? Morse is saying that the Catholic emperors of Europe right during the War of 1812, into the 1820s and into the 1830s, the monarchs of Europe looked at America as the great cancer in our world. And they said, we've got to destroy that cancer. Now, Charles Chiniquy, in his book, 50 Years in the Church of Rome, he says it this way. He says, Rome saw at once that the very existence of the United States was a formidable menace to her own life. Therefore, she perfidiously sowed the germs of division and succeeded in dividing the North from the South on the burning issue of slavery. So Austria, under Metternich, Portugal, Spain, France, Malta, all the Catholic countries of Europe, the Pope himself, Pope Pius VII, the Jesuit order that had been revived at the Congress of Vienna in 1814, they saw America as the great poison fountain from which flowed all the deadly evils which threatened the world. So knowing the time frame and the historical context of the 1815s and 20s, do you think for a moment that the Catholic monarchs and the Pope and the Jesuits would see the rise of Protestant America and just say, let her alone. Leave America alone. Let her do what she wants. Would they do that? If you think so, that's, well, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn, too. Folk, they looked at America. America had to be destroyed. It had to be destroyed. The question is, how would they do it? What would they do to attack the United States? Morse goes on. Is there nothing intended by this language of Austria? If action did not follow their speeches, they might be safely indulged in their harmless prescriptions. But this is not the case. Austria has followed out her words into actions. But what did Austria do? What did she do to attack America? You say, well, let me see now. The War of 1812? No, that was England and America. Well, there wasn't any real war on American soil until the Civil War. So what did Austria do? What did Catholic Europe do? Well, now that's an interesting comment, Rodney, because it was in 1816 that the Federal Reserve Bank was started up again. This was the third attempt in the United States to start up a central bank. And this time it was under the man Nicholas Biddle. Nicholas Biddle was the man who ruled the central bank. And in fact, that is definitely one mechanism that was used, because I've quoted many times from many books that the central bank that was established in America, that the Rothschild family every time was the main financial power behind that bank. And the Rothschilds, we know, were Jesuit agents from F. Tupper Saucy's book, Rulers of Evil. So the central bank was definitely one prong of the attack, because we know also from G. Edward Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. In that book, G. Edward Griffin says that by the 1820s, 1825, 1826, that Nicholas Biddle had the Congress in his back pocket. He controlled Daniel Webster, John C. Calhoun, Henry Clay. All of the famous men in the Congress were in Biddle's pocket. Let's notice where Morse takes us. He says this, "Is it wonderful how such an avowal in regard to America, that she should do something to rid herself and the world of such a tremendous evil? Does not her own existence in truth depend upon destroying our example? Would it not be worth all the treasures of wealth that she could collect if they could but purchase this great good? But how shall she attack us? She cannot send her armies. They would be useless. She has told us by the mouth of her counselor that popery, while it is the antagonist to Protestantism, is opposed in its whole character to republican liberty, and is the promoter and supporter of arbitrary power. How fitted then is popery for her purpose? This she can send without alarming our fears, or at least only the fears of those quote-unquote miserable, intolerant fanatics and pious bigots." It's interesting how some things in history never change, isn't it? Anybody who would dare declare today that Rome is attacking civil and religious liberty in America, they're just a religious fanatic. Well, you know what? That's what they called people back in the 1820s and 30s, too. Who affect to see danger to the liberties of the country in the mere introduction of a religious system opposed to their own, and whose cry of danger, be it ever so loud, will only be regarded as the result of sectarian fear, and the plot ridiculed as a foolish dream. You know, folks, Morse is making a tremendous comment here. This isn't an issue about Democrats and Republicans. This isn't an issue about, this political party or this candidate or that. Folks, this is about survival of this nation. That's what it's about. That's what it was about back in Morse's day. And that's the issue today. It's the issue of survival. You know, I have a disc, and maybe some of you might be interested in it. It's a recently out in Beaverton, Oregon. I was sent 3 discs, and they're of a news broadcast from a news station in Beaverton, Oregon. And what had happened is the tabloid, The Enemy Unmasked, had been put on the doorstep of every home in Beaverton, Oregon. Well, the next day it was on the local news because the people called and they said, this is hate literature, this is against the law, you've got to arrest whoever put this out. And the police laughed and said, what do you mean? This is a person's religious beliefs. Well, I've got the disc. If anybody'd like to watch it, I could bring them and put them back here and you could borrow them. But folks, on that broadcast, it was very interesting because one of the statements that the newscaster made, they said, and they were quoting right from the tabloid, they said, this tabloid says, and I quote, the Jesuit order of the Catholic Church is seeking to destroy the liberties of the United States and to destroy the entire world. Now they said, those are strong words. Folks, that's been the issue in this country for the last 200 years. And our very existence depends upon our clinging to our civil and religious liberty. That's our very existence, folks, as a Protestant nation. We lose those freedoms, and America is no more. It's no more. boats turns into a cone at the top of the circle. Well, your defense, you have two people right on either side of the free throw line, right there, and then down closer to the basket, you have two other men right here. But the box one, because you have 5 players on your team, the box one person, he goes out and his entire focus is the very best player on the other team. And as soon as that other player crosses the half-court marker on the floor, the guy picks him up, and he basically is running in that guy's shoes wherever he goes across the court. He doesn't worry about anything else but guarding that best player on the other team. That's called a 2-2 box one. Well, I remember in high school we played against our crosstown rivals. They had a young man on their team. He was 6'3", could jump out of the building and could hit shots from the popcorn stand. The guy was unbelievable. He went on to play professional basketball. But we played a 2-2 box one that night. And no, you couldn't stop the guy. You couldn't stop him. But folk, the point being, when there is somebody that is so dangerous to your survival and you winning or losing, you're going to put everything you can into stopping the sore spot. And that's all Samuel Morse is saying. He's saying that Austria, Germany, and all the other Catholic nations of Europe that were controlled by Catholic principles, they were using a 2-2 box one, and America was being boxed in. Immediately, here we go, immediately after the delivery of Schlegel's lectures, which was in the year 1828, a great society was formed in Vienna in 1829. The late Emperor and Prince Metternich and the Crown Prince and all the ecclesiastical and civil officers of the empire united in it. And they called it after the name of a great canonized king, Saint Leopold. This society is formed for a great and express purpose. It has all the officers of government interested in it, from the emperor down to the lowest in the empire. And what's the purpose? Why, that of promoting the greater activity of Catholic missions in America. These are the words of their own reports. Yes, these foreign despots are suddenly stirred up to combine and promote the greater activity of popery in this country. And this too, just after they had been convinced of the truth, had their memories quickened with it, that popery is utterly opposed to republican liberty. So what would Rome do? What would the Catholic monarchs of Europe do to destroy America? They would set up Catholic missions all over the United States. And in order to have Catholic missions, what do you need to have to run those Catholic missions? You need Catholic priests. What else do you need? You need Roman Catholics. That's right. You need Roman Catholics. And so back in the 1820s, 1830s, you have this tremendous foreign immigration into the United States of Roman Catholics from all over Europe. All over Europe, they came in droves to the United States to begin Catholic missions in America. But why? Fine, they have Catholic missions. They have Catholic people. They have 5 to 7 people in their family, and they have big Catholic families. Well, we still have a Protestant constitution. We still have civil and religious liberty. What harm is going to occur if Roman Catholics come into the United States? Charles Chiniquy, 50 Years in the Church of Rome, page 475. And I'm quoting a Catholic priest. This is not Chiniquy, but this is a Catholic priest speaking. He said this: "We are determined to take possession of the United States and rule them. But we cannot do that without acting secretly and with the utmost wisdom. If our plans are known, they will surely be defeated. What does a skillful general do when he wants to conquer a country? Does he scatter his soldiers over the farmlands and spend their energy and power in plowing the fields and sowing grain? No. He keeps them well united around his banners and marches at their head to the conquest of the strongholds, the rich and powerful cities. The farming countries then submit and become the price of his victory. So it is with us. Silently and patiently, we must mass our Roman Catholics in the great cities of the United States, remembering that the vote of a poor journeyman, though he be covered with rags, has as much weight in the scale of power as the millionaire Astor, and that if we have 2 votes against his one, he will become as powerless as an oyster. Let us then multiply our votes. Let us call our poor but faithful Irish Catholics from every corner of the world and gather them into the very hearts of those proud citadels which the Yankees are so rapidly building under the names of Washington, New York, Boston, Chicago, Buffalo, Albany, Troy, Cincinnati. Under the shadows of those great cities, the Americans consider themselves a giant and unconquerable race. They look upon the poor Irish Catholic people with supreme contempt, as only fit to dig their canals, sweep their streets, and work in their kitchens. Let no one awake those sleeping lions today. Let us pray God that they may sleep and dream their sweet dreams a few years more. How sad will be their awakening when with our outnumbering votes we will turn them forever from every position of honor, power, and profit. What will those hypocritical and godless sons and daughters of the fanatical Pilgrim Fathers say when not a single judge, now where do we have judges? Supreme Court judge. That's what it is, isn't it? They're judges. The Supreme Court justice. They're judges. Within the last 5 months, we've had 3 people nominated to the United States Supreme Court. And do you realize that 2 out of 3 of them were what religion? Roman Catholic. The highest judge, the Chief Justice of the United States today, John Roberts, a man in his early 50s, is destined, as time permits, as God allows, to change America, because John Roberts is a devout Roman Catholic. And now there's another man going up for review to possibly become an associate justice on the bench, What is his name? Samuel Alito. Yeah, he's known as Samuel Scalito. He's known as the Little Scalia. But Samuel Alito is a devout Roman Catholic from New Jersey. What will those godless sons of the fanatical Pilgrim Fathers say when not a single judge, teacher, policeman will be elected if he be not a devoted Irish Roman Catholic? What will those so-called giants think of their matchless shrewdness and ability when not a single senator or member of Congress will be chosen if he be not submitted to our Holy Father, the Pope? You know, I find it humorous when people say that Charles Chiniquy wrote this book for wealth. Folks, Charles Chiniquy is writing about today. This is history, but it's also prophecy being fulfilled. They're telling us exactly what they were going to do. And have they not done it? They have done it exactly. What a sad figure those Protestant Yankees will cut when we will not only elect the president, but fill and command the armies, man the navies, and hold the keys of the public treasury. You say, oh, but Bill, they don't elect the president. We got to elect, and we had the choice of John Kerry and George Bush. And before that, it was Al Gore and George Bush, and they're not Catholics. Folk, for the last 65 years, the political parties of this country have been completely controlled. No matter who gets into the White House, if you go back and study every person that's been on Democratic or Republican ticket, they have been a puppet of Rome for the last 65 years. It will then be time for our faithful Irish people to give up their grog shops in order to become the judges and governors of the land. Then our poor and humble mechanics will leave their ditches and muddy streets to rule the cities in all their departments, from the mansion of the mayor to the more humble, though not less noble, position of teacher. Then, yes, we will rule the United States and lay them at the feet of the Vicar of Jesus Christ, that we may put an end to their godless system of education and impious laws of liberty of conscience, which are an insult to God and man. Is it a surprise that the public school system of this country is in a free fall of collapse today? Is it a surprise that Catholic judges, Catholic subservient presidents are being elected today? The Catholic monarchs of Europe, they did their homework. They did their homework. And they set up those missions, and they brought their poor Irish Catholics to sweep the streets, dig the ditches, wash the dishes in Protestant kitchens. And they have brought enough over so that 2 Catholic votes are more powerful than 1 vote of a multi-billionaire. They've done their homework, folks. And you say, oh, Bill, come on. Now, wait a minute. Wait just a minute. Anybody that becomes a justice of the Supreme Court, Antonin Scalia, he's a Catholic, Bill, but wait a minute. He took an oath. He put his hand up, raised his right hand, and said, I solemnly swear to defend the principles of the Constitution of the United States. Yeah, he did, didn't he? But let me read a statement to you, folks. Great Controversy, page 580, in the chapter, Liberty of Conscience Threatened. The Roman Catholic Church, with all its ramifications throughout the world, forms one vast organization under the control and designed to serve the interests of the Papal See. Its millions of communicants in every country on the globe are instructed to hold themselves as bound in allegiance to the Pope. Whatever their nationality or their government, they are to regard the authority of the Church as above all other. Though they may take the oath pledging their loyalty to the state, back of this lies the vow of obedience to Rome, absolving them from every pledge inimical to her interests. A Catholic statesman can stand on their head and turn purple and take their oath. And folk, while they're taking their oath of allegiance to the country in which they reside, in their heart of hearts, they are bound. They are bound to honor the Pope himself and to carry out his bidding, not the bidding of the land where they live. Though they may take the oath pledging their loyalty to the state, yet back of this lies the vow of obedience to Rome, absolving them from every pledge inimical to her interests. Yes, I understand that that hasn't always been the case. John F. Kennedy, Ron Paul, a congressman from Texas, two shining examples of men, though devout and staunch Catholics, turned from their obedience to Rome and honored the country where they lived. But folk, those are shining exceptions to the rule. Very, very shining exceptions. Somebody says, Bill, what you're saying scares me. What you're saying, Bill, says that I am powerless to do anything because I live in a Catholic country, in a Catholic world. And you are making me impotent so that I can do nothing. Wrong. Wrong. What is our purpose in this world? Is our purpose to fight this, to try to change the U.S. government? Is our purpose to go out and buy a AK-47 and start attacking those who are attacking liberty? No. What is our purpose in this world? Our purpose is to give the messages of warning and entreaty that God has given to us to give. That's our call. We're not going to change it, folks. It doesn't say in Revelation 13, and I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And I don't see any parentheses in my Bible. It doesn't say right after it speaks as a dragon. It doesn't say. But right towards the end of time, there was a group of people and they stopped America from speaking as a dragon. Does your Bible have that? That's a joke, isn't it, Charlotte? Doesn't say that, folks. Nobody's going to change that. But we do have a purpose. We do have a mission. And we do have the divine promise that the Holy Spirit is going to attend those who engage in that mission. Notice what great controversy, liberty of conscience threatened. Here we are again. Great controversy 565 and 566. It's true that there are real Christians in the Roman Catholic Communion. Thousands in that church are serving God. Serving who? Who are they serving? They're serving God. That means they're amongst God's people. Not that the Catholic Church is where God's people are. That's not God's church. But there are honest people in Roman Catholicism. Thousands, the Spirit of God says, are serving God according to the best light they have. They are not allowed access to His Word, therefore they do not discern the truth. They've never seen the contrast between a living heart service and a round of mere forms and ceremonies. God looks with pitying tenderness upon these souls, educated as they are in a faith that is delusive and unsatisfying. And now here's where we come in. He will cause rays of light to penetrate the dense darkness that surrounds them. Now, how will God do that? You say, well, it could be through current events. Yeah, that's possible. And maybe a priest is searching for truth. That's possible. But the greatest possibility and the greatest likelihood is that some of God's people have finally gotten their act together and said, you know what? Our job is to do evangelism. And so we're going to evangelize and we're going to spread the truth as far as we can. You know, it's amazing how people have gotten so hot and huffy about the mass mailings. Hot and huffy about it. Oh, you're doing that? Oh, that's terrible. You can't do that. We need to do that at home and then we'll bring it back here. How is God going to send rays of light, folks? The major ways He's going to do it through people who know the truth and want to spread it. That's how He's going to do it. He will reveal to them the truth as it is in Jesus. And many will yet take their position with His people. There's our call right there. Romanism as a system is no more in harmony with the gospel of Christ now than at any former period in our history. The Protestant churches are in great darkness, or they would discern the signs of the times. The Roman Church is far-reaching in her plans and modes of operation. She is employing every device to extend her influence and increase her power in preparation for a fierce and determined conflict to regain control of the world and to undo all that Protestantism has done. Men are closing their eyes to the real character of Romanism and the dangers to be apprehended from her supremacy. The people need to be aroused to resist the advances of this most dangerous foe to civil and religious liberty. Did it say we were to go out and convert them? Doesn't say we're to convert them. Does it say that we're supposed to cram it down their throats till they accept it and become an Adventist? Doesn't say that either. It says God will allow rays of light to penetrate the dense darkness. That means us making truth available to people. And it says the people need to be aroused to resist this most dangerous foe of civil and religious liberty. When you arouse somebody, when I go in to wake up my daughter in the morning to get ready for school, I don't go in. The first time I go in and I say, "Sweetie, time to get up," but I don't leave until I see her eyes open. But if I go in the second time and I need to arouse her, I go over and I shake her. And I warn her with that shake. I say, "Sweetheart, if you don't get up now, the next time Daddy comes in, I'm coming in with a glass of water. And it's going to go on your face." She's gotten a few drops. Folk, if we go home sometime when we are out, and we have been out by ourselves, and we approach our home, and we see a fire, what are we going to do? We know that a loved one is inside that burning house. What are we going to do? Are we going to say, "Oops, need to fill up my car with gas"? Are we going to do that? Or are we going to say, "Oh man, I'm getting hungry. I think I'll go out and get something. I forgot it at the store"? Are we going to do that? Are we going to think of every diversionary thing we can? Or are we going to get to that driveway as fast as we can, and if we can get through that door and yell at the top of our lungs so that our loved ones are not burned up, aren't we going to do that? I would hope we would be doing that. I think we would. I hear the Spirit of God saying that God's people, during a time when liberty of conscience is being threatened, we are going to allow nothing to divert us from the purpose for which God has called us. And that is to allow rays of light to penetrate the dense darkness that overshrouds this world. And we're going to scream at the top of our lungs. The top of our lungs. The people need to be aroused to resist this most dangerous foe of civil and religious liberty. One last statement and we'll close. Great Controversy, 606. Read it before. We'll read it again. As the time comes for it to be given, the third angel's message, with the greatest power, the Lord will work through humble instruments, leading the minds of those who consecrate themselves to His service. The labors will be qualified rather by the unction of His Spirit than by the training of literary institutions. Men of faith and prayer will be constrained to go forth with holy zeal, declaring the words which God gives them. The sins of Babylon will be laid open. The fearful results of enforcing the observances of the church by civil authority, the inroads of spiritualism, the stealthy but rapid progress of the papal power, all will be unmasked. By these solemn warnings, the people will be stirred. Thousands upon thousands will listen who have never heard words like these. Do you think that people at that time will simply just get with the program at that point? Or do you think they will have been a part of a process of preparation? Folks, we don't just do things like that. There's preparation involved. We need to prepare our hearts. Thank God for the blessings that we have of doing mass mail-outs to reach souls with light and truth, so that we can be among that people who will be a part of the latter rain.